to another exciting episode of the Andre the Beast Creighton Show with my celebrity co-host, the star and host of the new podcast, Jessica Javens Talk. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here again with you, Andre. Thank you so much for having me.
You're in Indianapolis. I heard from a little birdie you may decide to relocate to the beautiful city of Indianapolis, Indiana.
Well, that did cross my mind. I got some invitations,
Yeah.
So,
and invitations go to Hawaii, too.
Yeah.
And swim with the whales.
Yeah, that's exciting.
You're setting fire and your stuff ain't even released yet.
Yeah.
So tell the viewers a little bit about the show. You got a show called Jessica?
Yeah, straight to the point, Jessica Javens Talk.
Right.
And it's a podcast that helps people transform their lives inside out into a life they truly love, which is what I'm doing right now. I'm loving life.
I'm going to tell you somebody else that's loving life, our guest. You had the pleasure of having him on your show. I've had him on my show before, and I shared with you the story on how I met this young man. I watched The Shack numerous times. First, I was turned away from it. I didn't want to watch it. I was skeptical, like most people. Yeah, I don't want to watch that. Then I read the book. I wound up watching it. Then, right after the movie, something else remarkable happened that changed my life. Watching a movie is one thing and reading a book is one thing. But when somebody does a documentary, thank you. It's my Latin accent that makes me forget these things. But I saw him share the true meaning behind the book, the movie, and I resonated with him in his universal way of looking at the world. He didn't look at the world from a religious base like most people do. He looked at it and saw what it really was and this is the key, what our purpose is here. And it's about love and forgiveness. And that's hard sometimes when you've been faced with adversity. But me personally, from my own journey, I'm pretty sure you can say it is yourself, when you're able to let go of the anger, the guilt, the shame, and some people might call it repent. I just call it releasing myself from emotional contracts that have no validation with me moving forward. Today, let me finish this up. So I told my friend, I said, I'm going to have him on the show. He's going to be one of my best friends. I reached out to him, and he reached back. And a tear came down my eye. At first, I thought it was a scam. And he contacted me. And I was like, oh, my God. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome my good friend, the author of The Shack, a true friend indeed, Mr. Paul William Young. What's up, big guy?
Hey. And Paul is my middle name, actually. So it's William Paul. But I've gone my whole life by Paul. I'm one of 4 generations of Williams, and none of us go by our middle name. And none of us go by our first name. We all go by our middle names.
Well, you know what? You could have been called Billy.
And people who've read the book and watched the movie, they think Willie, the character Willie, might be me, but I'm way more Mac. Willie is actually based on Kim, my wife's dad.
Right.
Willie lived with us for 17 years. His name was Willard, but we all called him Willie. And one of the kindest, most present people. And really, when Kim and I were going through a real rough patch,
Right.
Willie is the one that stepped in. My kids absolutely adored him. He passed away on his 92nd birthday in his room, in his suite at our house. And what an incredible human. So yeah, Billy, I just never was a Billy.
The reason why I say that, my dad's name is William, and they call him, and they don't call him William. They call him Billy Joe. They call him Billy Joe. Yeah. And I was like, I remember telling him, I said, well, Dad, I kind of like the name Billy Joe. It sounds cool.
Yeah. Well, it's way better than just Billy.
Yeah.
For a lot
so what I'm going to do is we're going to venture into a little bit about who you are. If you watched the second season that you were on, we really got deep with the making of the shack. But you got a new project coming out that we're going to talk about too. But before we talk about the new project that you're embarking in, tell the viewers a little bit about who you are. If they don't know who you are, they never seen the shack.
Sure. So, ordinary person, really, well, with a kind of an extraordinary world. And I think it should be extraordinary. I think that's what really amazing people are. Everybody wants to be extraordinary, and they've never even been ordinary. And and so, you know, for me, I am Canadian born, but at a year old, my parents and I, firstborn. So my parents and I moved to the Highlands in a pioneer missionary role of New Guinea, which is the big island right above Australia. And it was pioneer missions. We went into a place that had never seen a white person before, Stone Age culture. They were tribal, agrarian culture, practiced some ritualistic cannibalism, and very heavy into spirit worship, all that kind of stuff. And that's where I grew up. So I grew up inside of a completely different culture than here, but it was the culture I knew. It was the language I knew. It was the first real fluent language that I had. And so was sent to boarding school at 6, had some major tragedies along the way, you know, sexual abuse, whether I was targeted in the tribal context or not, don't know. But I was targeted in boarding school. And so at 6, it's, you know, I look back and think of how horrendous it is that there is a culture that will kind of force you to send your kids away at 6 years old. And so I got lost in the whole process, ended up being very much an outward in person, high performance perfectionist, liar hider. My dad was a very violent disciplinarian, and which didn't help at all. We came back to Canada. I was about 10 years old, 13 schools before I graduated high school. Knew how to bury all my addictions and perform and leave. I never knew how to connect to relationships. My emotional world was shattered, and drug all of that into my relationship with Kim, into our marriage. And then when Matthew, our sixth child, which out of 6, he was born. Shortly after he was born, Kim caught me in a 3-month affair with one of her best friends, and that blew up my world. And that started an 11-year, is it possible to change journey? And 11 years for Kim and I to fully heal, where she trusts me and has every reason to. And at the end of that, the 12th year, for a Christmas present for my kids, I wrote a little story on the train to one of my 3 jobs, and gave it to them for Christmas, made 15 copies at Office Depot on their photocopier, and dressed it up with a little plastic cover and spiral side, and gave the 6 kids each a copy, and Kim and I kept one, and I had extras, so I gave it to my friends. And those 15 copies did everything I ever wanted that book to do. Went back to work, never thought about being a published author. And then my friends started giving it away. And that's slowly started the wheels of a whole different world for me. And the book has turned into something of a I don't know. It's not a beast like you, Andre, but it is definitely a major presence in the world in so many different areas and across so many different boundaries. And I'm absolutely grateful to the core of my being that I got to participate in something like that. And here we are, all these years later. I wrote it in, well, it'll be 20 years, because I wrote it in 2005. It was self-published basically in 2007.
Right.
And by 2008, it was already, it showed up. And I don't know this world at all, so it was kind of a big surprise, but it showed up #1 on the New York Times list, and it stayed there for 49 weeks at #1. And I think they just got tired of it. So, you know, they found something else. But anyway, I mean, how does that ever happen?
Yeah.
And now this little book's right in the top 50 or 60 fiction novels of all time. And you just like,
how did it get into the hands of producers? Because I believe the movie surfaced in 2017.
Correct. Well, a couple of years before that, in order to make it, it released in 2017. And you know, the guys that helped me publish it at the very beginning, they wanted to do a movie from day one.
Right.
And so our goal was to just get some publisher interested enough. And 26 publishers turned it down, either by totally ignoring it or by sending us, thank you, but we're not interested. And
you know they're mad. You know they're mad about that, right?
Oh, I've had a few conversations where
they didn't look at it.
Well,
they didn't even look at it.
The ones that didn't know where in a store they would ever put this thing, and they which was a common problem. And then the religious people thought it had too much, it was too edgy, and the secular people thought it had too much Jesus in it. Right. So, you know, I look back and I go like, I don't think they understood that the world is filled with people caught and stuck somewhere between edgy and Jesus.
Yeah.
You know, and so, but you know, like a lot of industries, people tend to walk backwards. You know, publishing, they tend to walk backwards. They're looking at the past, going like, okay, you know, or in music, that was a hit, so let's do 10 more just like that, you know. And so innovation gets squashed in that kind of a frame of reference. So, you know, how did it get into the hands? Well, at one point it became, and I had told the guys that I wanted to keep the stage production rights, but I would at one point give them the movie rights, which I did. So I let go of all creative control. I let go of all rights to it, all money to it, everything. And I gave it to them because they'd helped me get this thing just published. So they had built a relationship, and I didn't think I'd be involved in the movie at all, but I ended up being very involved in it, just out of the kindness of Lionsgate and Gil Netter Productions. And they just kept drawing me back in really beautiful ways. And so, you know, the guys took it from there.
What was your take when they got Tim McGraw to play a really major, you know, because I mean, look, he's on the 1823, is that what it is, man? Or
18 something or other.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, you know, and I'm thinking, wow, you got this guy on your thing? Come on.
Well, Tim, the first day's shoot, I met him on the first day's shoot because Lionsgate said, you know, and they're a secular movie house, but they called me and said, would you consider coming on the first day's shoot and praying a blessing over the entire cast and crew? Oh. And I went, are you kidding me? Yeah, of course, you know. Wow. So I get there and I run into Tim right away. He's in the scene that I'm actually in a cameo from that first shoot. Yeah. And I'll tell you about it in a second. But I meet Tim and we instantly bond over dad issues. And so it was so sweet. And he is a very kind person. He plays Willie, that I told you is based off of Kim's dad. And man, he was so good at that role. So we're doing this, you know, I spend all day. I do the blessing in the morning, and then I'm just hanging around the electrical guys and everybody else, and in the afternoon they're going to do this one shot, and it's in a neighborhood near Vancouver, British Columbia. And I hear Gil Netter yell out, "Hey, Paul, you want to be in a cameo?" And I'm thinking, what's a cameo again? And I'm like, you mean like in the movie cameo? He said, yeah. He said, I've never shot a movie and an author was still alive.
Right.
That I didn't put the author in it somewhere.
Right.
And I said, absolutely. I'd love to do this. So in the movie, there's this scene where they're packing up all the kids to go camping.
Yeah.
And Nan's going to go her own direction. And Tim, Willie, walks up with a dog.
Yeah.
And he's coming to say goodbye to Mac and the kids and all of this. And so it's this interchange between the two of them. And Gil says, okay. And he sets it up. He says, when we've got the camera on Tim, we're going to just have you walk through the scene. You're just in the neighborhood, walking through the scene in the background. And I'm like, that is a piece of cake, right? I've walked most of my life. And then I realize, but I don't think about walking. I just walk. Now I'm thinking about walking. And it only took 5 takes.
5 takes.
5 takes just to get the walking right. But I got to tell you, if they had an Academy Award for walking,
you would have
I'd be right up there. Yeah. So it was this really beautiful thing. So if you watch that scene, you watch in the background, you'll see this sort of smallish, roundish, oldish white guy, and he's carrying something under his arm.
I'm gonna go back and watch that because I remember the scene, but I didn't look behind that. You know what I mean?
Why would you?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, no. So that was pretty fun.
That is good that they do this thing with the author. Just reminded me of Stephen King's movies. He's always, they show up like a little bit here, a little bit there.
Yeah, no, it's all good. So, I mean, it's fun. And it was kindness. It was a kindness for them to ask me to do something like that. I really appreciate it.
And I'm going to tell the viewers why we're going down this road, because everything that you've done thus far in your life and the things that you went through is going to lead us up to your new project. So that's what I'm doing now, showing the goodness that you have, and out of even the pain of childhood and so forth, you still have faith in human nature and the human gift of love. So let's stick with this movie for a minute, because this is definitely one of my favorite movies. Did you like the movie? Let me ask my celebrity co-host. What did you think of the movie? You watched it. What do you think?
I was texting everybody in my WhatsApp. Have you watched this movie? If you haven't, you need to watch it. Oh my gosh, I was bawling, and it was so unexpected. I was saying this to you. I was not expecting to feel or to know, and I love that. I don't like to look everything, even the trailer. Sometimes I don't like to watch because it spoils it. So I had the whole thing. It was a complete experience, and it was amazing. And I can get it, why this would be a success, and no matter what culture, no matter what religion, no matter what, it's so impactful in the way that it was done. And of course, I told you, she's one of my favorite actresses, the one that plays God. I love her to death. Forgot her name. Love her to death.
Octavia Spencer.
Yes, she's awesome. And
she is awesome.
Yeah. Anyways, the movie is absolutely one of my favorites.
Out of that movie, there were key moments that literally changed. No, let me rephrase this. It didn't change anything. That movie validated everything that I had already perceived. And it was funny, Paul, because I was even telling Jessica, there was moments I didn't even want to watch it. You know, somebody was like watching. I would watch a little bit. I was like, And I think because the triggers of some of that stuff happened to me.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't want to watch this. Because you know what I said? I know the outcome.
Yep.
I don't want to watch it. And then it was the universe that said, a couple years later, watch it. And watch it again, because you're not getting it. Watch it again. And then it started to resonate. The most impactful moments, I'm going to ask you, Jessica, first, and I'm going to ask Paul last. You watched the movie. What was 3 of the mind-changing parts of the movie for you?
I did have validation, but the validation for me was not the trauma. It was how the God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit were being portrayed. That for me is what resonated, and that's what I always felt, but it kind of painted the picture in a perfect way, you know? Mm-hmm. And the fact that the moment that he goes there and he has to start digging and planting and starting to grow, the way that is a life lesson right there. That is something that every human being should see, just that scene right there, because we all have things that we need to work on. We all have our issues or trauma. So that in itself gives the right amount of importance and the right way of doing it, and in the most unconditional loving way possible. And that is what we need to be. And that's what we were uh, um, created in that image to be able to portray that kind of thing too. So, anyways, that part for me, when he goes back to the shack, and I'm like, who's this guy? Why is he coming? Like, he wrote the note. Like, who is he? You know, and it was like, oh my god. Anyways, it was amazing.
Literally, oh my god.
Paul, you was part of the movie. I agree with you. That was the part that really impactful, when you saw the way that the Holy Trinity was presented, in the message of faith, in the message of the other part that really resonated with me, which I think people, and let me clear this out right now so people don't go all off into some bullcrap tantrum. Well, I'm not preaching religion. I'm preaching a beautiful story on how we need to learn to get along with each other. One of the biggest sins that we've done on this to each other is judgment. I thought the part of judgment where the cave scene was beautifully,
that was brilliant,
written.
That was brilliant.
Beautifully written, but it didn't leave out the human aspect.
No, not at all.
Not at all. He was still angry. And the other part was when he went to the medicine man. And the medicine man said, he's my son.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, and then when he told me, he said, this is going to be the toughest part. And then something else he said in there that was really, and I'm trying to tell people to watch the movie so they can get a better idea of not only your in-depth to life, but even when he told that guy, he was like, this is going to be the hardest part of your journey, the medicine man. And he said, you might have to say you forgive somebody. And that was key. I listened. He said, you might have to say that 1,000 times, but it'll get easier.
Yeah. It's a process.
And then when he saw his father and his daughter, it was mind-blowing, because it made you realize that we exist here and we exist now. We exist in eternity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Beautiful.
We create our heaven on earth, and we can also create our hell. But then the last part of this that I'm going to go give it to you, where the guy says evil and good permeate together. You have to figure out, you have to struggle with it. You have to struggle with it. That's part of life. But they exist. One doesn't exist without the other. I was like,
you can have good without evil, but you can't have evil without good.
Right. And I was like, holy crap, man. So the answer, we shared our part. What was the most impactful parts of that to you? Because you had a lot to do with this.
You're asking me about which of my children do I love the best, and it's like, well, it's the one I'm thinking about right now.
Oh, he's gonna flip the script on me and go into the cave.
No, I agree with him. But you know, my kids, they say, "Mom, which one is your favorite?" I'm like, there's no such a thing.
Right, and that happens in the cave, right?
Yeah.
So I'll tell you one little. For those of you who haven't seen it, I'll give you a little piece that you can look for that people won't know. They won't know until someone like me tells them. Okay. Near the end, there's a scene where they're back in the garden, and when they built the garden, they built it up in the hills near Vancouver, British Columbia, in the forest, and so they're back up there, and it's really close to the end of the movie, and there's a shot. They're in the garden, which Jessica referred to, which turns out to be his own soul, that he is participating in tilling the ground. And there's a lot more to it than that. But now they look at this patch of ground that he has dug up early in the movie, and they take the little vial that Saryu has been collecting. Saryu, that's a whole story, but that's the name for the Holy Spirit. But takes a vial of Mackenzie's tears that the Holy Spirit has been collecting over his life, and pours it out on the ground there. and out of the ground emerges a tree of life, not a tree of the knowledge of good and evil. This is about love and relationship. This is not about being right or wrong. And so up comes the tree of life in the place that he dug up. And so in the movie, they wanted this one shot, and you've got to realize there's, I don't know, 30 people up there. You've got your plant people, you've got your electrical, your camera people, lighting people, actors. And so they've got the shot of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit with Mackenzie in the middle. And that's what they want. One shot of, and they're looking down at where this tree of life is going to emerge. And it's simple. It's just a simple shot. So they roll camera, and it looks like special effects, but it's not. Right when they roll camera on this scene, a big butterfly comes out of the forest and lands on Mackenzie's nose, right on his nose. And it's not special effects. It happened in the moment. And you'll see the look on Sam Worthington, who played Mackenzie. You'll see this look of surprise, and it's because he's surprised. and all the other actors stayed in character, and that's the shot that's in the film. Wow. And so it's just like, oh my gosh, because there aren't a lot of butterflies around, and not of all the people for that butterfly to land on his nose.
Wow. No.
Kenzie, I mean, the whole thing was like it was choreographed by love.
That's amazing.
I remember that shot, and that was divine. That was done for a purpose. To let you guys know, it was a great job, a great story. With that said, let's go even deeper.
Okay.
You're now doing something truly remarkable. You're through this journey, through the movie and the book, you met some extraordinary people, some extraordinary individuals.
I did.
One happened to be an inmate. Tell me about that story.
Okay, so going back to the cave scene, there was a guy named Terry King on death row in Tennessee at Riverbend Maximum Security Institution. It's the only death row in Tennessee. And another friend of mine, David, in Nashville, he went in there to meet with the inmates, sort of like a ministry thing. But they changed his life. And Terry, he got to know Terry really well, and Terry told him how much the book had just ripped into his world and changed it, and specifically the cave scene. And he said, here I am on death row because I killed somebody. And I'm thinking I'm better than the pedophiles on death row. At least I'm not them. I'm not as bad as them. And that cave scene, he said, took me apart. I felt so exposed and naked before God. I felt like all my clothes had burned off. And he said, I'm literally on the floor because the conviction about my own duplicity was so powerful. And so he said, he tells this to David. David comes to me one day and he says, hey, I've got this friend, Terry. He tells me the whole story. And he says, if I get a copy of The Shack, would you sign it so that I can take it into him? And I said, no. I said, but if you can get me in with you, I'll go with you.
Wow.
And so we went in and met Terry King and Ron Cawthorn. They were the first two that I met. And this is about 7 years ago. And then I became friends with a whole group of them, about a dozen guys on death row. And there's 40 some guys on death row. And truly they've become my friends. I mean, there's no other way to explain the relationship that I have with them. They get to call me, they get 30-minute increments. So they call me, and every time I'm in Nashville, I go see them. And, since I've been there, 4 of the guys have been declared innocent, even though they've been on death row, all 4 of them, one of them 41 years, but the others like over 20. And it's crazy that we have a system where people, their cases are not heard, or if there's a problem, they're not reheard or reopened or reexamined. One of the guys that has become a very, very dear friend of mine is Kevin Burns, and he goes by KB. He says, I like Kevin better because it's what my mom named me. And Kevin is an extraordinary human being. Everybody that knows him and his stories, they know he is innocent. And trust me, I know that most of the guys on death row, and most of them will admit it, are absolutely guilty. But and they own it, and they have done whatever they can to try to make amends. And there's no way that you can bring somebody back from the dead, as far as, you can't do it. So
Right.
uh, that idea of justice doesn't work. An eye for an eye. What's interesting is that that's the Mosaic thing, and that's what a lot of people, well, an eye for an eye. And Jesus says, you've heard it said that an eye for an eye, but I say to you, turn the other cheek, love your enemy, etc. So Kevin, over his years, he's now been 33 years on death row, and he he is a light on death row. He's become an ordained pastor. You're talking about somebody who's innocent the whole time.
Mm.
He starts every day with today, the best day of my life, and but he every day he interacts with everybody that's on death row. He prays with them. He helps them write letters. He talks with them when they're struggling with something, helps them connect to their families or whatever he can do. And he's been doing that. He is now, and we believe this is true. I might be wrong, but he is the only inmate, properly ordained pastor of a death row church called the Church of Life.
Wow.
And so I've gotten to know KB really well. His case is it's a horrendous example of how things can go wrong
Right.
in the whole judicial process. And as a result, uh, Tennessee just started again putting out their execution calendar, which 4 guys are on it, and I know 2 of them.
Mm.
And the next group is going to be 5 guys, and KB is one of them. And so there's a group of us that are trying to not only get the word out about KB and about having somebody take a look at this, but we're also trying to meet with the governor. We've met with the governor and staff once, about 5 of us, and we're gonna try to do it again. One of the sort of traditions, it's not law or anything, that a lot of times the governor and his staff won't look at a person's file until they have an execution date. So meanwhile, KB is sitting there waiting for somebody to look at his file all these years. But he's a bright light. If you met him instantly, you would love him. You look at his eyes and you see the light that comes from his eyes. But he is funny, kind. He's kind of an old-time black preacher, and he seems 20 years younger than he actually is. He is full of life, and again, every day. The reason why he says today, the best day of my life, he got that because he was in church one time, and the pastor was all worked up with a good sermon, and there's 2 little stories about how this happened, but I'm going to just choose the one that I think's in KB's book, and it's the pastor finished the last line of his sentence and said, "Today is the best day of my life," and he died. He had a heart attack and just died, dropped
Wow.
behind the pulpit, and so and KB was a young man at the time, and so he just sort of adopted that. And he does it every day today, even when I've been through some really hard days with him as far as the legal process and
Right.
things. He says, "Today's the best day of my life. I'm right where God wants me, where love wants me for now and for today. And so when my time here is finished, then I will leave this place." And he believes that he will actually leave this place walking out rather than in a box. And so we are working to see if we can participate in making that happen.
Paul, based on who you are, I always have to realize that a lot of times you're going to be met with human eyes and human judgment. And I'm pretty sure you get why invest in them? They're criminals.
Yeah, animals.
Yeah.
Right.
Why even take an interest in it, knowing being who you are? But the universe puts people in your life for a reason. You walked in there for a reason. You seen what is called justice gone wrong. Let's call it what it is. Justice gone wrong.
You know, if for no other reason is they are human beings, if for no other reason, and human beings have unbelievable eternal value. And when you meet another human being, you are in the presence of someone who is important, valuable, worthy of life. And yeah, I mean, I can walk you through all the stupid things and the wrong things and the harmful things that I've done.
Right.
And I'm very clear about them. I don't hide. I have no secrets in my life about what my life has been or the harm that was done to me. And so I don't see them that way. I just don't. I can't. But I don't see any human being that way. I and I didn't used to be that way. There's a reason I wrote the cave chapter. There's a reason that I set it up the way that I did is because I'm Mackenzie. I'm in the middle of this, and I've got to deal with the forgiveness of my perpetrators and that, as well as be open to reconciliation. Forgiveness is for the sake of the one who's been harmed. It's not, it's so that you can move on with your life without having some kind of a corpse wrapped around your neck of some event or something that somebody has harmed you with. And because they probably don't even care, or they're dead or something. So if you're waiting for somebody else to change before you forgive them, forget that. It's not gonna, that can't be how it works. But it is absolutely essential if you want to move in the direction of becoming fully human and fully alive, that you've got to employ forgiveness so that you can move. Reconciliation, that's a whole nother thing. I mean, you can forgive someone and never trust them again because they haven't shown that they are trustworthy, which is part of reconciliation. Reconciliation is for the sake of the one who harms us. And for that person, it's going to require that they become a truth teller. And that's a hard step for most people. That's confession. Become a truth teller. You own what you've done. And you open yourself to the consequences of what you've done. And then repentance, the word you used earlier, is to actually change over time so that there is a consistent movement of your life in which other people can look from the outside and say, you know what? I think that person's trustworthy. It took him 11 years to fully trust me, and that I knew she now trusted me. And 11 years is a long time.
Yeah.
So, hell and heaven, like kind of like what you were saying, Andre, they're sort of relationships to love. You turn your face away from love and you'll find yourself in hell because it is such a hard thing. I mean, when Kim caught me in the affair and my whole world broke down and my kids and the harm that I'd done, that was hell. And it was hell day after day after day, just putting one foot in front of the other, trying to find my way through this with no guaranteed outcomes whatsoever. Just do the next right thing. And I'm so grateful that I hit the bottom and I needed to hit the bottom. Nobody has to hit the bottom. I mean, it's kind of like an elevator that goes down to the bottom, but you can get off the elevator at any floor you want.
Right.
And tell people, I need some help here. But it wasn't until I hit the bottom that I asked for help.
Just like you was going to ask the question.
It's amazing how not forgiving can just it's chaining. It chains you.
Absolutely.
It's a chain, and it's so heavy, and you're not hurting the other person. No. That's not revenge. That's not justice. That's nothing. That's just self-harm. And then when I come to a point, or even talking to my kids, if I can't, God forgives me every day. And who am I not to forgive? I'm better than God?
Exactly. That's such a good point. Such a good point. Yeah. It's really key to human relationships. And and both on the very personal side and in the community side, and then into the world. But
Paul, are you
yeah.
being met with resistance for your movement now to bring attention to what may be injustice to humans? Because we talked about this off camera, me and you, and I get it, and I support what you're doing. I'm gonna be on board with what you're doing, because I do believe that individuals deserve a second chance, plain and simple, or a third chance. Who am I to not to judge anybody, to be honest? You know what I mean? But when we're dealing with people that we label as animals, that we label as unworthy, but we also have to realize we also have a system that's corrupt too.
Absolutely. We as broken people build corrupt and broken systems.
Right. So my question is, have you been met with resistance, and what's that like for you, knowing who you are and your ties with, you're a major celebrity. I mean, people at Lionsgate knows you and so forth. Has your character, or have you been questioned, like, why are you doing this?
A little bit. People had way more trouble with the book than they ever did with what I'm.
This is a walk in the park, then.
Yeah, no, it's because I actually don't care, and it it people who when people have a reaction to something, it's usually because there's something in them that needs to be exposed so that they can be healed.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll listen. I'll listen to somebody's response or reaction, and I'll listen to hear whether what they're saying has some merit to it, because sometimes it does. And um, and so from the system side, whether it's religious or political, I tend to find more um, reaction to that. But a lot of times it's because there's people prejudices and biases that are already baked into that system.
Right.
A lot of my people, I grew up modern evangelical fundamentalist holiness people. A lot of my people um, are supporters of the death penalty. And Terry said to me one day, he said, doesn't the church on the outside know that they're killing the church on the inside?
Wow, that's deep.
Whoa.
Oh, it's incredibly powerful. And it's and let me use this illustration because it's a really important one for me. My relationship with my dad, as I indicated, was very tumultuous and very difficult, very hard. And it wasn't, and I forgave him. But as we've talked about, Andre, is that forgiveness is a process. It's not
Right.
just an event, because other elements of it come up. And on his 80th birthday, I ran into a situation where he again blew up the world at his own party, and I went for a walk, and I felt the tangible presence of Trinity, of love, of the higher power, however you want to say it. But and I have a very conversational internal relationship with God, and I hear, Paul, your dad hasn't known how to be a father for 60 years. He's not suddenly going to figure it out. And I'm like, yeah, I know that. And I hear, I'll be all that to you and more.
Mm.
And I'm like, no, I want my dad. And here, he's 80 years old. And I'm like, and I realized in that moment that I had trapped him. I had trapped my dad. And the reason he blew things up, the mines that I planted in the fields that I then led him onto that he blew up, those mines are called expectations.
Mm.
I created a set of expectations, and he eventually stepped on one and blew up the place. And then I was mad at him, and I in that moment, a couple things happened. One is I released him from all expectations. What happened is, second thing is that I let him become a human being, which is greater than being my dad.
Right.
To be dad is a subcategory of human, and I let him become human, and suddenly his story mattered, his listening to him mattered, all of these things. I was talking to the guys on death row, and I was telling them, I said, look, it's kind of like I have these 2 photograph albums in my inside heart. I have the one album of everything that he's done wrong. And as soon as he would do something wrong now, I'd go back to the photo album and I go, see, he's still the same SOB he's always been. Because I look at all these pictures when he did this and when he did this and when he did this. And I said, that photo album is well used. There's another photo album that's kind of locked away in a little corner cabinet that's dusty. And that one is the things that he did well, like that he was good at telling stories to children. He was good at getting up in the middle of the night and going, helping someone, digging out their driveway in the snow, whatever it was. But I didn't want to look at those. Because they violated how right I am about this photo album. And I'm telling the guys, and one of them says, that's the justice system. They put you into a box, a frame around the photograph, and you're not allowed to change. You're just not allowed to change. There is no redemption at all. You're just the animal in the cage. And that's what I did to my dad. And
Wow.
yeah, finally and when I let him out of the cage, I let myself out of the cage.
Right. What's the phrase that KB says every day? Today is
The best day of my life.
the best day of my life.
And you're in the process now of working with I Am Beast and myself Productions and to create a podcast. The KB story, and the tag is today is the best day of my life podcast. The KB story, hosted by you. This is a podcast designed to do what? Is it designed to bring his side of the story on what he's going through, or is it more a podcast designed to educate us as to what's really going on in the system and to take a broader look at it, not to judge, because I think that's where I think people need to get out of their mind. It's a podcast designed to allow KB and other individuals on death row who may or may not be wrongfully accused, but more importantly, to have open mind and to become humanly passionate. Say, you know what? Let's use the system the right way and really go back and investigate these individuals that may have had public defenders, that may not have had money, that may have been young during the time of the crime in general, but more importantly, to open up to magnify the complete picture.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, if I was really smart, I would know the answer to your question. I think story has power,
right,
just by its presence. And I don't have an agenda. I'm not trying to present an argument against the death penalty. I don't think that's necessary. I think that if you can open up the human heart and the human heart begins to soften, then there's no question about how wrong it is. But so that's just a very side kind of thing. That's not the purpose of this. I'm doing something that's on my heart. You're doing something that's on your heart, and we'll see what happens with it. It's story, and every human being is a story. If you could throw a dart anywhere in the world on a map and then follow that dart down to a single house, to a single apartment, somewhere in the middle of some city in some part of the world, and you started listening, you would have a story, and that story would matter. And so with KB or Terry or Harold or Purvis or any of these guys, Akil, story matters. And by just allowing somebody to escape the categories that we have created, it's interesting. In the Greek New Testament, there's a word for accusation, to accuse someone. And even the Satan is called the accuser, right? But that word in the Greek is kategoro or kategorizomai. It's where we get the English word to categorize. So if you want to accuse people, you just stick them in a category. You know, they're black, they're white, they're Asian, they're on death row, they're a feminist, they're a Democrat. Every time you create a category, you have now you're now eating of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil and not the tree of life. It's all about being right and somebody being wrong. And then you trap them, and you can annihilate. This is what Hitler did. You create a category, and then you can annihilate the whole category. And what we're doing in the story is to let people out of the box that we have created and put them in as a category, so that Terry is Terry King, who was born and raised in Knoxville, Tennessee. KB, West Memphis, right? He was born on this day to these parents, this family, good family. And this is what happened. This is the run-in with the police at that time. This is what then happened in the court situation, in the criminal trial that was so desperately wrong. And this is where the system as it exists,
I'm glad that you're
failing.
I'm glad
it's
that
just
you
not working.
I'm glad that you're taking a stand, and we need people like you to really look at the system and try to mend some of the pieces. It's going to be met with resistance, but I got a feeling we're gonna do something. We're gonna shake some ears here and allow KB to really share his story, because that's what we do here. Everybody has a story, you know. That's why the platform's there, and now it's easy to let people hear your story, and a lot of times that's all it needs. It needs to be heard so people can start to react to it. And if I don't know, and your stories lie dormant, they remain dormant. And my hat's off to you. We're going to do whatever we can to get the podcast out so KB and the guys can tell their story. So once again, you can get to know who these people are. They're not a number. They have a story.
Yeah.
They have a life. They part of a system that, this is the thing about it, is people only want to react when something happens to them. That's the bottom line. If you watch the movie The Green Mile, that was really powerful. A circumstantial situation that was very deep, and unfortunately at the end, only one person was alive to tell that story. Now, I asked myself this when I watched that movie. Should Tom Hanks and the people that knew the gift that guy had, they clearly saw what happened. What if, and it's for the people as it relates to this podcast we're getting ready to do, of the KB story, just imagine what would have happened if those people in power, he ran the jail, he knew the commissioner, that's the start right there. That would have caused a ripple effect. But everybody lay dormant until that guy got the electric chair.
Everybody was afraid.
Thank you.
Everybody.
We need to stop being afraid, and that's what I mean with you. You're not afraid. This is what it's about. This is that beast mindset. We're going to make that happen. We're going to do whatever it takes to get those voices heard. Mm-hmm. And we're not asking people to condemn. We're asking you just to listen and realize that we're dealing with a system that it can happen to anybody at any given time, whether you're black, white, whatever. Yeah. Wrong place, wrong time is what they call it.
Yep. And I'd like to, even in doing some of this, someone like Cyntoia Brown, and I don't know if you know her story at all, but at 16, she killed her pimp basically, and ended up life in prison, but is now out. Powerful person, powerful speaker, beautiful human being. And but she has a story, and she's a voice in the middle of this. So not only the guys that are on death row, but there are people who somebody heard their story, and it matters. Cyntoia's story is off the charts cool. But again, a great example. So there's some things that we can do with this that, whether it's an ongoing thing or whether it's just like a series,
we're gonna do a series. We're gonna do a series. I already got it. I already got a program, Paul. It's already in the making.
More power to you, brother.
Yeah, we're gonna get it done, and let's try to. When we launch it, it'll be this spring. We're gonna launch it this spring. The sooner the better. Get the word out. And my hat's off to you, Paul. You're definitely a great friend. You were sent to do this for a reason. I'm a firm believer of that. I'm glad to be a part of helping you with this journey. We're going to have you back. I'm not going to hold you up. It's been a beautiful day. I like the fact that you came and shared this story. When you talk to KB, tell them I said hi and the other guys, and tell them we hear their voices. We're going to make sure everybody else hears it. Jessica, thank you so much for being my co-host. She's been quiet.
Paul speaking, what he's doing with his life is just so amazing. I'm just immersing myself completely in what he's saying. It's just fascinating. And thank you for everything that you're doing, Paul. It's amazing.
You know, from my side of it, it's very simple. It's just staying present and doing the next right thing and trusting the ripples. That's how simple real life is, as far as I'm concerned. You learn how to stay present. You respond to that which is in front of you only. You don't create imaginations that don't exist, and you don't make your choices based on outcomes. It's just trust the ripples. Be real in this moment. Respond. Trust the ripples.
That's the best takeaway for our listeners, huh?
And I'm going to end it with this. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another exciting episode. Help me, of the Andre the Beast Creighton Show.
Joe, bless you.